Peter Batt.
Yes.
Clara Gibson.
Yes.
And today, hello. And today, we're exploring the joys of work.
Basically, work satisfaction levels
Yes.
are, well, they're historically low.
They're in the pits in this country, yes.
But they've never, well, they haven't been very high for quite a long time, it seems to me. That work is more something that people do simply because they have a mortgage to pay.
Yes, and they won't get, there's no other way, they have to do whatever it is that will pay some bills. Kind of slavery, really. I mean, that's the chappie that you introduced me to. I don't know whether he'd like to be called a chappie. Actually, Professor David Graeber.
David Graeber, an anthropologist.
He's an anthropologist at the LSE.
And 2 or 3 years ago, he wrote a book called Bullshit Jobs.
Yes.
And it was about the way that modern capitalism is creating basic meaningless jobs that no one would miss if they didn't exist, other than quite a lot of people get paid for doing bullshit jobs.
Yes, and he had some very interesting, reasons for why people had them, because he'd done a survey. I was asking people to contact him if they would describe their own job
and
as a
nominate their
job.
own job as a bullshit job, yes.
But the reasons for why they had them were sometimes actually just to make somebody else seem good. Which was quite interesting, that very often they saw that it would make no difference whether they were there or not. But what was also very, very interesting was that actually quite a number of these bullshit jobs are actually relatively well paid, but actually sort of killing the mind and the initiative and creativity of people, because they're not able to do it, because it's a job with no meaning. But what he identified was that actually those jobs that were deemed vocational are actually, you're supposed to get the satisfaction out of doing the job, being a nurse, being a health visitor, being a police officer these days, because actually now police officers actually, it seems, have to have several jobs in order to pay their bills. And so it crossed my mind when I was hearing that, because I mean, as an ex-nurse and health visitor, I recognise very well that actually, being told, well, it's a vocation, being a vocation doesn't pay the bills, and it's grossly unfair that people who are doing things like, either, I mean, at one level you can say saving people's lives, and at another level, they're actually doing things that other people would never dream of doing, clearing up vomit, clearing up poo and pee, and washing and caring for people that other people don't want to care for, and they're paid peanuts for doing it. But it then crossed my mind that actually so much is being turned over to the voluntary sector. Almost everything, if you just think about local services, and this isn't just here in Thanet, but around the country, that, care for the environment is being done by volunteers.
Okay, yes, there are jobs that are created that seem to be part of empire building. So David Graeber said, if the whole class of telemarketing professionals were all removed from the face of the planet, would anyone notice or care? And the answer is probably not.
Yep.
But the most important point is that there's a whole load of work out there that really does need to be done, that the system and those who have the power in the system, mainly corporations and also governments that reflect quite right-wing business ideas, they're not prepared to pay for them anymore. They don't care. It's almost like, their money has parachuted them into a different planet.
Well, the gated communities.
Yeah.
Because that's what most of those people will be living in.
But it is more than that. It's also sort of like, these sort of island communities, or you go to Monaco, or, the tax havens, or that sort of business. That basically they don't care about the things that might bother us, or might even bother humanity. and they are no longer prepared to pay for it. And this is part of the withdrawal of the state. Yes, they want to pay as little as possible,
Mm-hmm.
and if they can get away without paying it at all,
They will
do.
Absolutely.
And so we now have a crisis of work, I think. But actually, interestingly, I think we also have a crisis of this idea of the Protestant work ethic. Because our culture
working hard
is reliant on the Protestant work ethic, which tells you that through work you have self-advancement and self-respect. And increasingly,
That's
I think
not
that
the
is
case.
complete bollocks.
It is.
Because an increasing proportion of the work opportunities out there, they don't pay you psychologically, they don't pay you emotionally, and they certainly don't pay you, for a large number of people, financially. And this is the problem that we've got. And so we've got to start, reassessing the whole Protestant work ethic and how work is going to be distributed and how it's going to be paid for.
Well, indeed, but it is interesting over the last sort of 10 years since I've been self-employed. The happiest people I've come across have been those that are self-employed, who are in charge of their own lives. And I think it's very interesting if you look at the costs to people's lives of doing work where they feel, as you rightly acknowledge, completely undervalued, overstressed, underpaid, and it just, it limits them vastly, but the impact on their lives in every single way is absolutely phenomenal.
Yes.
And also intergenerational, because if you have children who are going to the education system, which is still educating people for this outdated mode of the economy, jobs that supposedly last forever and don't, jobs that supposedly require skills and don't. You've got children who are already seeing that their parents don't have a job that satisfies them or utilises any skill that they might have, and that their parents are being ground down, beyond sort of surviving almost. And so yet these children are being forced into an education system that actually is expecting them just to go the same path as their parents. And they're saying, hey, I don't want to do this. And actually those who comply because they still think, well, actually, if I get all of the qualifications and I go and go to university, and I might actually then, maybe I'll become a doctor or a lawyer or a banker or whatever. But in my coaching business, I actually see all of those people who are burnt out, unsatisfied and highly stressed. But the impact on their health, through the generations, poor diet, stress, which then creates immediate and long-term health costs, deprives society of people's their own creativity. We're vastly poorer for this system.
I think that that the whole work thing is becoming more manic the fewer opportunities there are out there. So we've got an education system which is now chucking out all of these graduates, and yet the opportunities for the graduates to earn the money that they need in order to pay for their education are reducing.
Yeah.
And I think that those who are in work, still in one of the reducing pool of well-paid, secure jobs, I think that that even they feel the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to ask the question. Economic and thinkers and philosophers were talking in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, saying that technology was going to release.
Oh yes, indeed, and has it,
and that actually we would have much more of a life of leisure, which leads me onto the sort of things that I think that we need to start looking at is reassessing work. Mm-hmm. And reassessing our lifestyles to see if we actually need all the things.
Oh, indeed, yes.
That we want. I had a lifestyle change about 6 years ago, and my life went from living in a big house to necessarily living in quite a small flat with very few things, and the relief of doing that was truly amazing.
Yes.
all of a sudden I had my life back.
Yes.
But also, if you don't want to give up everything, you then have to think about ways of maintaining your leverage. One of the reasons for the increase in wealth disparity, it seems, and income disparity, is that people have been convinced of the rightness of getting rid of trade unions.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, the disappearance of trade unions and also their emasculation, because let's face it, they're as powerless now as they've been for the last 80 years, has actually been mirrored by the inability of ordinary people to basically get the same share of the wealth that they are creating.
Okay. Yes.
So much more of the wealth
Absolutely.
they create is going to their bosses.
Oh God, absolutely.
And it seems to me that,
who will pay them as little as possible.
Who will pay them as little as possible, yeah. So we need to think about our lifestyles and healthier lifestyle, spending more time with friends and not necessarily being obsessed with the 57 million inch plasma TV or just taking on shed loads of debt.
Yes, absolutely.
But also having a bit, accepting that you need to have a bit more power in the workplace. You need to have leverage, otherwise you will be dumped on from a very great height.
Yes, but also I think it's enable for people to realise why they want to do whatever they want to do it.
Yes.
Because I think for people to, even at school, I mean, I've had, school students and worked with school students, actually helping them to realise why they want to, what benefit the education can be to them, rather than that they have to do it. There's a difference. And actually helping them to develop their dreams of what they want to do, so that then they can see the purpose in whatever it is that they're being asked to study. So that they're using the education system for their benefit rather than the stats of the school system.
Yes.
And I think also in work, I think that people need to realise that they do actually have choices, and that because of the nature of work and as you say, the insecurity of work, I mean, absolutely nobody has job security anymore, and some have much less.
Unless you're chief executive of a bank, even if your bank
loses
billions of pounds.
But you might. There are the odd occasions where they do get moved on, but they then tend to get a sort of very handsome
they only move
handshake,
on
don't they?
after their bank's performance was so hideously terrible that it threatened the stability of the entire economy. Then they're moved on,
and then they get millions upon millions.
Otherwise, they get richly rewarded for doing bugger all, or for doing things not very well. But I think. So the point, to finish this on, is that we need to think about what it is we want to achieve and the work, but we just need to stand back from this Protestant work ethic where we're told we have to work all the time, and actually just try to take some control.
Absolutely, that you're doing it from your choice.
That you're doing it with
a purpose,
and actually, you can then actually create a lifestyle that you have some control over and which actually gives you some pleasure.
Yes, because otherwise, why are we here?
Otherwise, we're just listening to politicians who just want us to work for harder and longer and to burn ourselves out. And I think...
they'd be quite pleased, because actually the sooner we die, then they don't need to pay them for their national service.
Oh, Clara, that's a little bit cynical, isn't it?
I do have my thoughts on that one, I'm afraid. I don't know that they really care.
Okay. Well, on that note,
that jolly note, just take your own life back. That's what I say.
Yes.
Actually, you can take your own life back and be in control of it, and that is vital for your health and well-being and the joy of society.
And living as community. A smaller economic footprint.
Oh, it's vital.
Environmentally vital, but actually emotionally and spiritually and all that sort of business, I think it's not as scary as it seems.
No.
When you're in that high-paid job and you're trying to pay all of your bills. I mean, okay, there's quite an adjustment, and some of it would be difficult, But actually, the end result is nowhere near as scary as
Yeah,
you may be led to believe.
Yeah, it's like decluttering.
Decluttering,
Isn't it lovely?
simplifying.
Simplifying, yeah,
Yeah.
make life simple. So,
Anyway,
on that note, we say goodbye.
bye for now.
Bye.